Alright, so chapter 13 is about setting up sheets and printing, which will be kind of an essential part of finishing your project for the semester. So we've gone over a good deal of this information in bits and pieces before, but we're going to walk through it step by step here. Hopefully that will help you finalize your project for the semester. Chapter 13. The objective of the following procedure is to create a new sheet. To get started, open the file you've been using or to follow along or download from their website, which we've downloaded it. In the project browser, scroll down until you see the Sheets category. Alright, so for the most part, we've been working up here in Views. We haven't really talked about Sheets all that much. And you see there's not a plus sign here, so there's no Sheets in this file yet. Right-click Sheets and select the new sheet. And that's going to bring up this dialog box. In the Select Title Blocks area of the New Sheet dialog box, select E1 30 by 42 horizontal title block. It's probably the one that's available. This is the default title block. We'll hit OK. Now this is just the Autodesk Revit default title block. You probably have created your own title block. So that's the title block you should use. Does that make sense? That this title block is controlled by a different file. Congratulations, you now have a blank sheet. Next, you'll add views to it by using the click and drag method. On the View tab, click the Guide Grid as shown in Figure 13.2. In the Guide Grid name dialog box, call the grid or Guide Grid 30 by 42. Select the guide grid and drag it into place by using the blue grips. See Figure 13.2. Alright, now this you can see lines up and it's a 1-inch grid. Do you see that? So if I select on this grid, I have some spacing here. I can change that if I like. So I'm going to change it to 3 inches because 1 inch is a little dense for what we'll be doing. We'll go ahead and change this to a 3-inch grid. And we'll take that grid and we'll just drag it to the area of the sheet that we're actually going to be working with. We don't need this mess all the way. Now what this allows you to do is set up your sheets consistently. So you can put stuff in the same place on each sheet. Does that make sense? Because you now have a grid. And you want to take your time to be precise with this, right? Like that may not seem like a big deal, but I'm going to tell you that you want that as precise as possible, because the more precision you start with, the more precision you end with. Does that make sense? Okay. Alright. Item 5. In the project browser, find the dependent view called Level 1 West as shown in Figure 13.3. So if we go up here to Views and we go to Architectural Level, Level 1 West, we know is a dependent view because it's underneath Level 1. And we're going to pick the view, hold down the button, and drag it onto the sheet. And Revit's going to think for a minute, but then it's going to give us a view. That wasn't difficult, was it? No, pretty simple. When this view is centered in the sheet, let go of the pick button. The view follows your cursor. Try to align to the lower left corner of the viewport with a guide grid. Then click. Doing so places the view on the sheet. So if you had clicked before that, you could always sit here and do that. This is how you populate a sheet using Revit. Quite the departure from CAD. One nice detail is that the title is filled out and the scale will never be incorrect. The next step is to begin renumbering sheets so that they can create a logical order. Sheet organization. If you've been following along with the book, you already have a sheet numbered A101. As we do. It would be nice if you could give this sheet a new number and start your sequence all over. Revit lets you do just that. The goal of the next procedure are to change the sheet numbering and add more sheets, allowing Revit to number the sheets sequentially as they're created. Follow these steps. In the project browser, find the sheet A101, unnamed, and right-click. Alright, so we're going to go down here in the project browser to under Sheets. And we're going to right-click. Select Rename.
On the A101.
Change the sheet name to West Wing Level 1. Click OK. And you'll see that updated right here. Right-click all sheets and create a new sheet. We're going to come in here, right-click, new sheet. OK. And it automatically numbered it A102. Your project browser should now resemble Figure 13.5. And it does. With the sheets organized, you can now proceed to create more. As you do, you'll see that not only do the sheet number themselves, but all the sections, elevations, callouts begin reading the appropriate sheet designations. In the project browser, drag the Level 1 East dependent view onto the new sheet. Alright, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the grid back on this sheet first. So we would just go to View, and hey, I want to put the grid. And because I adjusted the grid at the first sheet, it already shows up with the right spacing and the right location. Now I can go and I can drag Level 1 East. And I know I kind of aligned with that. Okay. In the project browser, double-click the A101 sheet. Open the view. Notice the view reference next to the match line is filled out with the appropriate designation. Well, looks like they have a boo-boo here in their file. Right? Let's go look at 102 and see if they have the match lines. There we go. See how that says 1A101? It auto-populated that information. Now, I don't much like the way they did that, so we can take and rotate this. That would seem to be more appropriate, right? Easier to read. Let's go back to 101 and see if they have one over here that I'm not seeing. No, I just don't think their file is up to date. But if you recall in the last video, we actually made we made these, right? We put in a tag that referenced a view, and as we change that view, for example, I'm going to change the number here on A101. I'm no longer going to call this drawing 1. We are on A101 right now, yes. I'm going to change that to 3, just for argument's sake. And when I go back to A102, what's been updated? So it's on 3. This is a really great time saver with Revit. It makes sure that your views and references are correct. I don't know how much time I spent in my career redlining stuff where literally all I was doing was matching view numbers to make sure that the drafter hadn't made a mistake. So as you move things, or say I come in here and I rename this sheet from A101 to A1.01, this will update A1.01. So they're dynamic. They talk to each other.
Jeff, on this level 1.
Let's see. So now we're going to go and double click on A102 to open up that sheet. In the project browser, sheet A102 is still unnamed. The next procedure describes a different way to rename and renumber a sheet. With the sheet A102 open, zoom into the right side of the view as shown in figure 13.6. Select the title block. A few items turn blue. If you remember, any item that turns blue can be modified. So if we select this, that's blue, that's blue, that's blue. We can change these things. Click into the text that says project name and type no experience required. Click into the text that says unnamed and type East Wing Level 1. Click into the text that says unnamed and type, oh, I already did that, sorry. Create another sheet using the 30 by 42 horizontal title block. New sheet, use that title block. What you'll notice is some things, like no experience required, showed up on every sheet because it's a project parameter. It's not individual to that sheet. We're going to rename this sheet because the book asks us to rename it 201. Name it Enlarged Plans. Add the 30 by 42 grid. So we'll do that by going to View, adding that grid. Drag the following views onto the sheet. Typical elevator shaft, typical men's lavatory, typical women's lavatory. So there's our elevator shaft. Men's lavatory. Women's lavatory. Evidently they don't look exactly like the book, right? So let's fix that. So we can do a couple things. If I double click in here, I activate the view. You'll see everything else grows gray. It means I'm working with this view, or this view, women's lavatory. And come down here. It says all this should be visible. So I don't know why it's not visible. That's interesting. Well, I guess it is visible right there. So it's very cropped. What's causing our view to be so large? The section,
Yeah,
right?
section.
And I don't exactly know why it's showing because it's outside the annotation crop. But what I'm going to do, because that's giving me heartache, is I'm going to go and say, actually I'm going to open up this view and see why it's giving me so much heartache. I can hide that element in this view. And that should, if I go back to the sheet, okay, it fixed my problem, right? Now the problem I have is that my I mean, this is kind of hokey. I don't like that you can't align things better than this, but I'm going to put the start of my plan all in the same place. Now I need to move my drawing title. So if I click here, and then I click here, I can't move it. If I click here, I can move just the drawing title.
You know, I changed the, in the view, in the sheet where I said hide the element, and now I can't seem to get,
I'll have to help you once I've got the sheet set up. Let me finish this first, please. Alright, so, if you move the view, you're going to move the title with it, right? So you kind of want to get your view where you want it on your sheet. And then you're going to go back and just select the title, and you can move your title wherever you need to. Same thing here. We're going to double click in there. We're going to grab this, right click, hide in view element, right click again, deactivate view. That cleaned that up quite a bit for us. And I would be relatively happy with that. What I would probably do, if this was my sheet, is I'd want to line up some of these grid lines. Like maybe that top grid line gets lined up with that top grid line. Even though they're different grid lines, you can do that by going to annotate, grabbing a detail line, and dragging that detail line across. And then you know that you can take this, I think you can align to a detail line. No. Then you can take this and you can move it down until it aligns. Then we can delete that detail line. So there's going to be a little bit, depending on how anal you are about setting up your sheets, there's going to be a little bit of time you have to spend setting up your sheets. Now you'll notice that it auto-numbered these views. 1, 2, 3. And it did that in the position or order that we place them on the sheet. If you wanted them renumbered, you just simply click on there and number them something different. A, B, C, 3, 2, 1, the opposite direction, anything like that. Okay, now that your first floor plans and typical enlarged plans are placed on a sheet, let's move on to adding the details you've created. If you feel as though you have enough experience creating a sheet and adding views, go ahead and proceed on your own. Your new sheet will be numbered A301 and will be called Building Sections, and you'll add the views: East Corridor Section, West Corridor Section, West Training, and West Wing South Wall sections. Your sheet should look like figure 13.8. So let's try to do that without really following their step-by-step directions. If I was going to tackle that, the first thing I would need is a new sheet. So I'd come over here, new sheet. That's the correct title block, yes. Right away, I know that it's not going to be A202, so I'm going to come in here and name it A301. And I know that the name of that sheet is going to be Building Sections. I would get into a habit of setting all this information up as you know it. I'm going to go ahead and put my grid on there to help me align things, so I would go to View and set my grid. Yep, thank you very much. And then I'm going to start to look at my sheet setup, and I want to add some building sections. So let's go see what we have in here for building sections. Make that maybe a little bit bigger. We're going to add East Corridor View, or East Corridor Section rather. Let's drag that on there. I wouldn't get super concerned about where you place them at the moment. Then we're going to add West Corridor Section. Then we're going to add a section at West Training. Okay, and last we're going to add West Wing South Wall section. And I'm just going to hold that one off here for a minute. Alright, so I know that this view needs to move basically down here.
What was the last one you did?
The last one was West Wing South Wall section.
Okay.
I'm going to move this over here. Now, is this enough? Could I be done here? I could, but this is very sloppy, right? Do we like to be sloppy? Well, we try not to. So I'm going to try to align these things. And when I'm doing elevations, I try to align the grade line, right? So if this is level 1, I kind of want to align level 1 everywhere. Because then there's the same reference. So using my trick from earlier, I guess I can check a line, but that's not going to let me do it. Using my trick from earlier, I'm going to do a detail line, and I'm going to drag that across over here. So I know that's where I want level 1. And I'm going to bring this down to level 1. Alright. Alright. And this is a little messy here. I don't want that there, so I'm going to grab both of these views by holding down the control key. And I'm going to move them over. That cleans that up a little bit. I'm probably going to do the same thing here. Looks like level 1 here and level 1 there are almost in the same place. So I would just grab a detail line off level 1 here. Oh, serendipitously, they both were in the right place. The key here is you want your sheet to look well organized. Now, how you number your sheet also matters. Typically, you'll start here, and there's a couple different thoughts on this. You can either start in the lower right-hand corner and number it 1 and go up and down and up, or you can number it 1 and go down. Depends on your office. I prefer the one closest to the right-hand corner to be numbered 1. So I would number this 1. Oh, screwed up there. Let's deactivate that view. And what's it going to tell me? Detail number is already in use. Use a unique number. So I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to have to go find number 1, which is over here. And name this like number 5. And when I come over here, I can now name that number 1. This I'm going to rename quickly to number 3. And this one I'm going to name to number 2. And this one to number 4. Now when I go back to my floor plan on A101 and I start to look at sections, what happened? They automatically filled themselves in. I can't stress how much of a time saver that will be for you. Alright, next item would be to modify a viewport. In Revit, when you drag a view onto a sheet, a linked copy of that view becomes a viewport. This is what you see on the sheet. Any modifications you make to the original view is immediately reflected in the viewport, and vice versa. See Figure 13.9 for a graphical representation. So, if we go back to A301, this is a link to that view. It is not a copy of it. It is the actual view. In the next procedure, you'll activate a viewport and make modifications on the sheet. You'll also explore the elements property of the viewport. Follow these steps. Open sheet A301. We have it open. Zoom in on the viewport. West wing, south wall section is shown in Figure 13.10. Select the view. Right-click and activate the view. You can also do that by double-clicking. But you'll notice the view is activated because everything else is grayed out. With the view activated, you can work on it just as if you had it open from the project browser. Select the crop region as shown in Figure 13.11. Stretch the top of the crop region upward so you can see the entire view. On the view control bar, select hide crop region. I'm going to do it over here. Turn the crop region visible off. If you don't turn that off, it will print a black square around your drawing. Right click and select deactivate the view. And this brings us back to the sheet. So we didn't have to go into that view to make those modifications. We can do it directly from the sheet. Right click the view to the left of the west wing wall. It's the view called West Corridor section. Activate the view. Stretch the crop region downward so you can see the entire foundation. And I'm going to stretch it upwards as well so I can see the whole roof. So I get the whole view. And we'll deactivate that. Next step talks about moving that title. We don't want these things touching, really. So we can come in here, select that title, and just move the title down. Now, a well-organized sheet, those things would be aligned, so how does everybody feel about that? Yeah. So essentially the rest of this chapter is, well, one, pretty self-explanatory, but two, this over and over and over. So sheet setup takes some time. You're going to have to pay attention to what you're doing. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit so we can give you more time to work on your projects. And we're going to talk about how do we print our file. And it's actually really simple. And there's a little bit of an explanation towards the end of chapter 13. I'm not going to really worry about that explanation too much. You can review that if you like. But essentially, you're going to print to a file. The file type is called a DWF. So you're going to come up here and you're going to say, I want to export this. Now I want to export it as a DWF. You could go to print, and you could give it a printer name, a PDF, or whatnot. But you want to export to a DWF because that's a file type that is commonly used with Revit. If you just are a stickler for PDF, you could always come here and say, I want to export or print to a PDF. I hate to print to PDF, but let's show you how to do it anyway. So if you were going to print to a PDF, you'd come here. You'd want to click on the properties. And you really want to go to Layout and Paper. So you know you want it to be landscape. That looks okay. You probably have to go into Advanced. And you don't want it to be letter. In this one, you'd want it to be Arc E1. You'd hit OK. You do not want to print the current window or a visible portion of the current window. You want to select views or sheets. Then you'd come in here and you'd say, these are the sheets that I want to print. All right. And you can look at your setup, Arc E1, landscape, center it, zoom. If you've done everything right, you should just be zoomed to 100%, not fit to page. If you fit to page, it will scale it, which means when your drawings go out to the field, they won't be the right scale. So you hit OK. Then it's going to ask you to give a name. Let's just say test, and I'm going to put this on my desktop, but you can put it anywhere you want. And then we'll hit OK. You have chosen to print 4 views as separate files. No, I don't want to do that. Combine multiple selected sheet views into a single file. Click that button. I do not want 12 or 15 individual files that I have to open up individually. Nor will your contractor or anybody you're trying to work with. Combine them into one file so people don't have to do that. Then hit OK. And it's going to think for a minute. You say OK, and it's going to start creating your PDF. And I guess since DWFs are antiquated at this point, I'll allow you to print a PDF for the class. Everybody wants PDF files now, so that's fine. We'll just modify that requirement. And as you can see, does this take some time? Yeah. And this is only 4 views, 4 sheets that we're printing. So I'll pause the video here, since we don't need to sit here and look at the files printing. We'll come back when they're done printing. Once your file has printed, now I printed just 1 sheet because we were having troubles doing multiples. The computer here at the college is a little slow. But once you have it printed, open it up. Zoom in to what you have printed. You're going to want to fix things like this. That's horrible, right? You're going to want to fix where text and lines and things cross over. And they may not be evident until you actually print it out and look at it. You have a section here that hasn't been placed on a sheet somewhere, so it needs to be updated. So please do not just hit print, take the file and turn it in. Take your time to go through the file, make sure it accurately represents what you want to turn in, that it's complete, that it's not sloppy. Now those things I will be looking at closely. If you turn in a bunch of sloppy drawings, it means that you haven't taken the time to really, I won't say understand, you've just been sloppy. And that's a skill that doesn't require any special talent. You all know how to pay attention to detail. I do expect you to pay attention to detail. I do expect that if you have a section marker on your drawing that it's filled out properly. I do expect that text and drawing elements don't overlap when it can be avoided. I do expect that all your sheet titles and things that you've ran spell check. Just the simple basic stuff to make it a clean drawing. And you'll know when you open up your file if it's a clean drawing or not. Any questions about how to create a PDF file? Very straightforward. You may have to do it a couple times until you get the hang of it, but if you have questions, please attempt to do this before the next class. And so we still have 3 class periods before your final is due. I anticipate that the majority of those class periods will be time for you to continue working on your case study houses and ask me questions. But you should be, in full stride at this point working on your case study houses.